What is up, guys? DunkinDozeNuts here. Today we're going to go over all of the Warzone settings now that the new season is out and the movement update is in place. These are just some of the settings that I recommend. With your specific setup, it could be a little bit different. You could have a better PC than me. For example, mine is a mid-tier build with a 3070 and a Ryzen 5 5600X. So it isn't anything too crazy powerful, but it is what I use to play and stream on. So here we go into the settings here. Looking into the settings, now I am a controller main. I am a hybrid player, so I can play both controller and mouse and keyboard, but we will only be going over the controller section. There are way better people that you can find mouse and keyboard settings from, such as Breadman, for example. I highly recommend checking out his settings video that he released about a week ago now, but we will be going over the controller settings. So looking at the controller settings, I don't use bumper ping. I use a standard default stick layout. I don't use flipped. I use the standard buttons to fire and aim. Now I used to be a very high sense player. Basically every single Call of Duty I've played, I've been either maximum sensitivity or like Warzone 1, I was an 18-18 player. Since Warzone 2 and then the transition to the new update, I've actually lowered my sense quite a bit. I went from 18-18 down to 8-8 and now currently 7-7 in this new update. And you can see right here 7-7. You do want to make sure that you do have these set to 1. These will apparently lock if you don't have it set to custom. So this is just some sort of a glitch. You have to set it to custom, set these to 1, and then set it back to your preferred sensitivity. Apparently there's some sort of glitch going on right now where these are affecting your base sensitivity there. And then for a sensitivity multipliers, these are third persons, ground vehicles, kill streak sensitivities, and tablet. I just leave those all normal. Tac stance, I leave that on basic. I use the dynamic aim response curve. I highly recommend this. You can kind of fiddle around with this yourself, but I think either dynamic or linear would probably be better than the standard aim response curve in my opinion. ADS sensitivity transition timing. You want this to be instant so that the moment that you're ADSing, your sensitivity is always the same. It's not like a gradual change from your base to your ADS essentially. And then I use a custom sense per zoom. I have my low zoom just a little bit lower. That helps me kind of fine tune my aim at close ranges and really just keep my shots accurate in close gunfights. Target aim assist, of course you want aim assist on. I use the default aim assist type. I haven't really tried the Black Ops aim assist too much, but I would recommend kind of trying that and flip-flopping back between these two. I wouldn't recommend messing with the precision or the focusing too much. Third person ADS, we don't know if there's a third person mode right now, but of course you'd want this on assist to have a little bit of aim assist in the third person mode. I don't use any of the motion sensor settings there. So looking into the gameplay settings, we have automatic tactical sprint, slide, maintain sprint. I highly recommend keeping these on. That way that when you run around, you're automatically tactical sprinting whenever it's up, and your slide is maintaining your sprint. So if you, for example, are sprinting and you slide during a sprint, you'll continue to sprint after that slide. I don't use auto move forward myself. I don't really recommend that. The tactical sprint behavior, I have that on single tap. Grounded mantle, I have off. Automatic airborne mantle, I recommend having this on partial. Essentially what that does is anytime that you may fall or you're mid-air and the mantle may prevent a fall, it'll kind of save you in that regard. I have the automatic ground mantle slash hang on off. My slide slash dive behavior, I have this on tap to dive. I prefer to hold to slide, but some people have gone over to switch this to tap to slide or slide only so that they're only sliding, not really using the dive, since the dive still has a bit of a delay on it before you can get shooting again or moving. Sprinting door bash, I have on. Parachute auto deploy, I recommend having this off. That way that you're not getting stuck in a situation where your parachute is automatically deploying when you could pull it in maybe a better situation. Plunging underwater, I have on free. Ledge climb behavior, I have on movement based. I just prefer that over the mantle only. I don't like getting stuck on the mantle. Combat behaviors, we have ADS behavior on hold, change zoom activation on sprint, tactical sprint, or focus. Equipment behavior on hold, weapon mount activation, ADS plus melee, weapon mount exit delay on medium, tactical stance activation, ADS plus down button, tactical stance behavior on toggle, interact slash reload behavior to prioritize interact, armor plate behavior on apply all, ADS stick swap on off, backpack control with directional buttons. Some people use the stick. I just prefer the D-pad bad personally. Depleted ammo weapon switch. I don't like personally when my weapon swaps on me. I'd rather be in control of that, but if you tend to run out of ammo and forget how low your ammo is, maybe turn that on, see how that works for you. Quick C4 detonation I have on grouped. I don't really use those. Manual fire behavior on press. This setting here you can have on hold if you have like single fire weapons, for example, and you'll just have to hold the button down in order to make it shoot for you, but it doesn't necessarily shoot as fast as the weapon could, and also makes it very strange for the starter pistol. It doesn't shoot at the full speed, it shoots at like half speed. Vehicle camera recenter I have on short delay. Camera initial position on free look. Lean out activation melee. Score map stats behavior on toggle. Ping wheel delay moderate. Double tap danger ping delay moderate. Kill streak wheel behavior on hold. Here are all of my graphic settings. So now again, really what I'm going for in these graphic settings is just maximum FPS. I also stream off the same PC to all platforms, to Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Kick, TikTok as well. So there is a little bit of performance that's getting eaten up by that process. So I need to get as much performance out of this as possible. My goal with these settings is just to maximize performance. So I play on full screen borderless. I recommend full screen exclusive. The only reason I use borderless is because I alt tab a lot, which essentially just means I'm tabbing out of the game to go clip something or check something on Twitter, or tabbing out and looking at my stream or chat. Display monitor, you want this to obviously be your main monitor. Display adapter should be your primary GPU. Screen refresh rate, you want that to be as high as your monitor will allow it. Display resolution, whatever your monitor's resolution is. Aspect ratio, you can leave this to automatic. I know mine is 16:9, so I just put it on 16:9. Display gamma, that's 2.2. Brightness, this is kind of just your own preference. I don't really listen to what this says here. I just kind of adjust it to my own likeness. And then under that, constrained mouse to game window we have on off. NVIDIA reflex low latency. Now this setting, there's a lot of controversy, I feel like, within the community on like where you need to set this. As far as my knowledge, if your CPU is not as good as your GPU, you want to have it on plus boost. If your CPU is better than your GPU, you can just leave it on. And if you're on a really high-end system, probably don't even need it on. This should be on custom eco mode reset. This setting for some reason keeps resetting to efficiency. I think that might just be some bug in the current update of the game, but that should be on custom. VSync, definitely have that off. VSync and menus, that should also be off. Custom frame rate limit, custom, and then we're going to expand that there. I recommend having your gameplay just max it out, go all the way to the right, that way that you can get the maximum amount of frames while you're in the game. And then you do actually want to have a limit on your menu and your out of focus. Your out of focus is when you tab out of your game or have your game minimized, and your menu is just like when you're in this screen, for example, it'll cap it out. You can see up here at the very top left, it caps that out at 60 FPS. What this basically does, it allows my GPU to have downtime, and it'll allow your GPU to have downtime. So between games, it allows it to just kind of cool down, take its break, and get ready for that next game. Looking under the graphics quality, the graphic reset, we have this set to custom. I wouldn't really recommend going based off of any of these presets. Mess with these settings and kind of find your custom setting is probably the best bet here. Render resolution, you tend to only want to have that set to 100. Dynamic resolution, have that set to off. Upscaling and sharpening, it's very important you have this set to Fidelity FX CAS. The reason being is it just looks the best, it forms the best, it's just all around the best. I use 100 strength on that. Path tracing plus ray construction, you definitely want to have that off. It's really only something you want to have on during like a campaign or a story mode game. VRAM scale target, if you're on a lower end system like I am, or a mid-tier system, you want to have this kind of maxed out or set pretty high, 85 to 90, 80 to 90, somewhere around there. If you're on a very high-end system, I've heard people are having some stuttering issues and some PC issues. Setting this between 60 to 70 from what I've seen has been helping them a lot, reducing some of that stutter or delay. Just mess around depending on your system specifically. This is one setting I recommend turning on, is the variable rate shading. When I first started playing the update, the game didn't feel too smooth. It felt kind of like I was getting packet burst every now and then. And I was kind of looking through the settings and tweaking stuff. I was restarting after changing things. Well, I turned this on, reset my game, and then immediately that went away. So if you're having visual stutters or maybe a little bit of screen tearing, definitely try to fiddle with turning that on or off there. Now, under the details and textures, again, we're going for FPS, maximum FPS here. We have texture resolution set to very low, texture filter anisotropic set to low, depth of field set to off. Detail quality level, we actually have this set to high because as you can see here, it has a very low effect on the GPU and the VRAM, and it'll kind of just clear up the image a little bit of what you're seeing around you and reduce visual clutter. Particle resolution we have set to very low. Bullet impacts we have to on. This is more so just so that I can see recoil patterns of guns in the firing range. Persistent effects we have this set to on. Shader quality set to low. On-demand texture streaming we have this set to off. Local texture streaming quality we have set to low. Shadow quality set to low. Screen space shadows set to off. Ambient occlusion set to off. Screen space reflection set to off. Static reflection quality set to low. Tessellation set to off. Volumetric quality set to low. Deferred physics quality set to off. Weather grid volume set to low. And water quality set to off. Now, under the view settings in the graphics panel, we're obviously using the maximum FOV. If you've never played on 120 FOV and you're from console back when, for example, in Warzone 1, before they actually had the ability to change their FOV, it was locked to, I believe it was 80. So if you're coming from that sort of perspective, then definitely gradually increase this. That's what I did when I switched from console, is just gradually increase this from say 90 to 100, 110 until you can get comfortable. But I do, however, recommend playing on the maximum field of view available. That way you have the most amount of view and you can see everything around you. Also, for the ADS field of view, we have that set to affected. I don't really recommend using independent, but if you struggle with seeing your targets, for example, the moment you ADS, maybe the muzzle flash is getting in your way. I had that problem in Warzone 2. Then maybe the independent could help you. But affected tends to keep things closer to your field of view. So if you have it set to 120, it's going to keep things closer to 120. If you have it set to 100, closer to 100, and so on. For weapon field of view, I use wide. This makes the weapon look the smallest on the screen, so it takes up less space. You have more space that you can see. Now, we don't have a third person mode right now, but obviously you want that field of view set maximum. I do have the vehicle field of view set to wide as well. However, this doesn't always work. Sometimes this bugs out. Sometimes it just goes to the default. So it's really kind of buggy, really up to you on what you want to choose there. Now, unless you're clipping people on TikTok and wanting to upload some really interesting cinematic clips, I don't recommend having any motion blur on whatsoever. Or if you're playing maybe a story mode or a campaign, I personally don't use any motion blur. So world motion blur and weapon motion blur I have set to off. Film grain I have on 0. First person camera movement and third person camera movement, you want those as low as you possibly go so that you don't have as much camera shake. I leave this on third person. Again, we don't have a third person mode, but as a third person world record holder for when that was actually present in Warzone 2, I think that keeping it third person is kind of the point. Spectator camera, you want this in game perspective. There is, however, a bug going on now where when someone gets out of a vehicle and you're spectating them, it'll reset to that helmet perspective. It's really annoying, but you can just switch it with a button. So inverted flashbang, this is really up to you. I don't personally like it because every time the inverted flashbang, for example, with a normal flash, the whole screen goes white. With an inverted, it would all go black. So with that effect, it tends to make me think that I'd either dev errored or my monitor turned off. So I tend to not play with that. All right, so that's all of the controller and the graphics settings. Now we'll go through my audio settings. The audio in this game is a little bit spotty. I would highly recommend just following Artist War for when he has his audio update. But for the most part, what I've been hearing is there's just a issue with the audio of the game, and the makers of the game are gonna have to go into it and actually fix the audio from kind of that standpoint. But what I found to work for me, I do use the loudness EQ settings from the last season that Artist War had put up, so I highly recommend that. I'll try to put a link somewhere down in the YouTube description for that, but essentially it's just enabling certain settings and changing certain equalizations to make you hear better. Now I still use that from the last update, and then I also use the audio mix for the PC speaker. And then of course we have our speaker output set to Windows default. Now this is mainly because of the fact that we're using this loudness EQ setting that Artist War has. The Windows default default essentially makes my system think that it's 7.1 surround sound, in which case it makes it easier for you to hear people. Now, again, I'm not an expert in that. He is. Go look at his video, not mine. So for volumes, we have master volume on 100, gameplay music volume. I don't like playing with music, never have. I always turn it all the way off. So put that on 0. Dialogue volume we have on 50, effects volume on 100. You want to make sure you are hearing everything going on around you. Voice chat volume, this is up to you. I leave it pretty low, and most of the time I have voice chat muted because I don't want anyone saying anything crazy when I'm trying to hit a clip. Cinematic music volume on 0, war tracks volume on 0. These are just the voice chat settings, nothing really important there. Microphone settings. At the very bottom here, you do see some more audio settings. I highly recommend having the reduce tinnitus sound on. This is that very high-pitched squealing sound that you'll hear oftentimes when you're hit with a flash or a stun. This kind of helps get that removed a little bit. War tracks as passenger, I recommend having that off. Juggernaut music also off. Hit marker effects on classic. That's just a preference. I recommend the old sound more than the current sound. And then we're going to look at the interface settings. I recommend having subtitles all off. They're just an obstruction in the screen. That's just a personal preference. Menu text size on default, text chat size on default. Color customization, I play with a custom color palette here. You can kind of see the breakdown of what that looks like. I do generally play with a color blindness mode. I kind of fall into a spectrum of Deuteranopia color blindness, but again, I just use a custom that's a little bit different. HUD bounds, I recommend having this all the way in. This makes it to where your minimap, your health, your teammates' health, your armor, everything like that will be just kind of brought in, so you have to do less of a eye movement or head movement to look to the sides of your screen to kind of see everything that's going on around there. But if you're a little bit further from your monitor, you can probably get away with pushing that all the way to the edge. Now, one thing that does kind of tell me if someone is kind of a bad player or not is the minimap shape. If I go to your stream or I see you playing with a circle minimap, I just automatically assume that you don't know what you're doing. So yeah, just change that to square and you'll thank me for it later. Minimap rotation on, horizontal compass on. You want to be able to tell people which direction that people are shooting from, for example. So up here you can see it's north. If you were getting shot from that direction, you could say, oh, I'm being shot from north, instead of saying, oh, I'm being shot from that way. And that'll help your teammate locate that target and help you out. One of the most important settings in the entire interface panel is the crosshair setting. You want this on static. You do not want this on or on off. Obviously on, this will be moving around and going all over the place and really just kind of bouncing all over your screen. It's never in one singular spot and it seems really inconsistent. It's going to lead to you missing shots and being inaccurate at times. So I highly recommend putting that on static. And even furthermore, if you want to, I use the center dot, of course, and then the center dot scale, I actually boost it a little bit larger just so that it's more prominent on my screen. It really helps me with when I'm centering on targets. Hit marker visual set to on, that's highly important. That way that you can see when you're hitting a target, when you're getting a headshot, you'll get these cool little double lines. That's a newer feature within this Warzone update. Damage-based hit markers are also important. That's exactly what I was just talking about. That way you can see the different hit markers based on what exactly is happening when you're hitting that target. Player names, this is just personal preference. In-game text chat, also personal preference. I have that set to on just because it's kind of fun to mess around with people in the in-game text chat. Connection meter, I have that set to off. Network in-game alert icons, I highly recommend this to be on. That way that if you are having high latency or latency variation, packet burst, packet loss, or any sort of internet issue, it'll give you an icon to tell you that, okay, this is the problem that's happening. So if you, for example, lose a gunfight and you're wondering why you lost it, it could just be that you had packet burst in that specific gunfight and that led to a variance in your connection that made it to where what happened on your screen wasn't necessarily what happened in the gunfight. Hardware in-game alert icons, this is to tell you if your GPU is getting too hot or if, for example, you didn't load your shaders. Highly recommend having that on. Now at the very bottom here, hide setting details, I have that set to off. Gameplay tips, I have that set to off. If you're newer, you may want to set that to on. There could be some useful things in there. Skip introduction movie, highly recommend having that on. That way you don't have to watch that every single time you start the game. Tooltips, again, if you're newer, turn this on. That way you can learn some stuff. If not, turn that to off. Menu prompts on automatic. And that's basically all of the settings that we have here now. And that's all of the settings that we have for the current update of Warzone, or what I like to refer to as Warzone 3. So if you have any questions, concerns, or if this helped you in any way, definitely comment below. Let me know what helped. And if you have any questions, leave them below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Make Make sure to follow me on Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Kick, and Twitter, and I'll see you guys in the next one.